Okay, dear colleagues, let's start this session, and which is actually very much a parallel of the one we've just had, but for one of the other big topics, which is more, digitalization. So actually, the OECD has two big priorities at the corporate level: the digital transformation on one hand, and green. The greening of our societies and economies. So we've talked about, how education contributes to that creatively before, and so now we actually want to talk a little bit on how we can actually, teach things related to technology, to digital transformation in a way that also develops students' creativity and critical thinking. So that's very much the topic of that session, and we have a wonderful panel to talk about that. So we have Isabelle Biadatti, who works at IBM, the corporate social responsibility of IBM in France. And actually, we are very much connected with the colleagues in India and with Joyita Das. I'm not sure whether she's on Zoom, but and where they've built the Skills Builds platform, which is a very interesting platform, with a lot of different types of resources, and we are considering to work together on, developing some new examples of lesson plans. But we are also very interested to do that, with Alexander Repenning, also coming from Switzerland, and so that's a long name for the university, but I will give it. Yeah, but that's just the. So who is the teacher at the University of Applied Science and Arts of Northwestern in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. So you can see that's what it means. All these different letters, and Alexander is a professor of computer science, and so really that's his work to teach about these kind of things and at different levels. And Mario Piacentini, who is a colleague and leads the innovative domain in Pisa. So, creative thinking is what is coming next. But they do a lot of other interesting things, and he's going to talk about these upcoming things before. So we're going to have a few presentations first, and then, we'll just open the floor and have a discussion about these topics. So, Isabelle, you want to go first? Yes.
Okay, so thank you for having me and inviting me, and I'm representing IBM here. I'm going to talk about IBM Skills Build. It's a worldwide initiative that we are developing in different countries. The reason is that we are committing to investing in the future of work and to provide education for free on technology with a strong focus on underrepresented communities in tech. So IBM has made an announcement recently and is committed to skill about 30 million people by 2030, with a focus on people who are far from tech. And this is in response to all the business and social needs that we have, and to help close the skills gap. And you probably already discussed that, but about 60% of workers will require tech skills by 2030. So it's a strong number. We have developed a tool called IBM Skills Build. We've put a lot of creativity in developing this tool, which actually was piloted in France 4 years ago and is now developed globally. And the idea is really to help people who would like to embrace a career in tech and to increase their skills. To increase their skills that are adapted to the market needs. And of course, we are providing courses and credential. I will talk a bit more about that for free for those people. So what is Skills Build? Skills Build is a platform. It's an online platform with a customized practical learning experience. And it's open, so everybody can go right now and look at this platform. And it's targeted to high school students, to academia students, and also to adults. So we are there are three different entries. It's free. You have a lot of content, more than 1,000 courses, now available in 20 languages. And you will find technology content that are in line with what is demanded on the market. And so you will get some topics like AI, cybersecurity, data analytics, programming, and you will also find a lot of workplace skills that are essential to work in tech. And so we have this platform is available publicly, but it's also there is also a possibility to customize and personalize learning paths, and you will also find some credentials. So to do that, we partner with a wide range of partnerships, and we have a wide array of contents that allow students and adults to reinforce their skills in the market. And so we also have found that online learning, so people can go and do some self-paced learning, but online learning is also very effective when it is delivered collaboratively with local partners. So we are partnering locally with a lot of different partners, and we are also providing an enhanced version of the program. And on top of the platform, we are providing workshops. We are opening up a mentoring tool that is also including in the platform. So people can get in touch with coaches or mentors. It's either IBM volunteers, but it can be also volunteers from other companies who can participate. We are offering project-based learning activities, and also we have, in some cases, we can offer some licenses for organizations who want to go deeper and access to other contents. So we have the possibility to offer additional contents. So we got some feedback already from teachers about the content that I will show you on the next slides. But the format of the content, the feedback that we got is very positive because you can customize your learning and you have some engaging content with different time. So you can take 10 minutes to do a modules, or you can take 20 hours to if you want to go deeper in the learning. And so the feedback that we have is that the content is very engaging, and I think the reward that you can have is when the students are using the content themselves and when it go viral, and they share together what is working. So in terms of content, you have a lot of different modules, but you will also find some learning paths that drive to a credential. So the credential are industry standard credential, recognized in the market in the IT industry, and it's split by skills level. So you can just stay at the awareness level, but you can also complement your skills and go deeper and apply skills that you will apply with project-based learning. And you will get then a certification. And what is really interesting is that this certification can be shared on your LinkedIn profile, for example, or on your electronic CV, and it will increase the employability of the people. So we are trying to engage also students in this form of learning, because this is what they will face when they will be on the job market. This is how they will have to learn continuously. So as an example, this is what, if you connect on the platform for the education, high school education section, what you will see. So you have access to a wide range of courses, a catalog. And for example, if you click, I chose, of course, artificial intelligence, but if you click there, you will have some content that will be proposed for students or for educators. And for example, for the students, you will access to a learning path, and the students will be able to choose what they want to learn. So they can learn modules in 15 minutes, but they can also do, for example, a badge. So you will see in red, this is a learning path that will give you a badge, certification. And you can do that in about 10 hours. And so the students can choose themselves to which course they want to do. But we also have the options for the professor to create, I would say, a virtual class, and to create his own class and use the content in the class. So for that, he has also access to a toolkit where he has some content for his own training, but also some information on how to use the content in his class. And he has the possibility to customize and to choose the learning path he wants to assign to a group of students, to individual students. And he can also track the progress of the students individually. And he can also assign a specific learning with a certain time to the students. And to finish, I don't want to be too long. To finish, I just want to give you an example of what we are doing in the education system in France. So we have started to customize some learning paths. So we have on the right, you will see we have a customized learning path for teachers that responds to the new reform of vocational training, where we have chosen some topics like cybersecurity or artificial intelligence. Also included are soft skills in the past. And we have also developed some learning paths for some schools that we have, for example, this one is for in the north of France, where we are addressing students from high school to the level of associate degree, the BTS. And we have chosen some content conjointly with the pedagogical team. And they are using the content in the classroom, and some students are also doing the courses themselves after the class. And we have also developed a learning path for mentors because we have some IBMers or industry partners, volunteers from industry partners, who are using the content when they mentor students. And so we have chosen certain paths. And what's important is to receive the feedback. It's to work with the teachers to deploy the learning path, but then also work with the students to get their feedback and maybe rework the learning path with them.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. No, I know that when I start manipulating the mic, it's a cue that you need to get to the conclusion. So, Alexander, you're on.
Good afternoon. How are you? Doing good?
Good.
Well, thank you to the OECD to invite me. I'm excited. I'm going to talk about collaborative computational thinking. When I started my research quite a while ago at the university, at the beautiful University of Colorado, here you can see the campus, I wanted to know about the psychology of programming, and I remember still asking the first person, a 12-year-old girl, what do you think about programming? And she was very clear. Programming is hard and boring, right? I mean, these are two dimensions which became my research agenda, right? The hard part, that's a cognitive dimension, right? Can be hard or easy or accessible at least. And then at the time, it was super easy to make mistakes in programming, just one semicolon away from total disaster. So I came up with this idea of block-based programming in agent sheets, and others followed with Scratch and other kinds of tools. So that has become a lifelong passion of me. But then there's also the boring part. What are we even computing? Prime numbers? Are we interested? Are kids really super interested in computing prime numbers? Maybe they are. Most are actually not. So now comes this idea, what should kids do with computers or machines? What's this whole thing about computational thinking? And if you actually look here on the left, right, Blaise Pascal, long time ago, he created a machine that would do computation. This was already a computer, right? So this is about the relationship of humans and machines, and now we have AI, which seems to be at a completely different level, but conceptually speaking, it's the same idea. And so I summarize this essentially as this thought, like it's thinking with the computer, right? We use the computer as an instrument to think with. And so if we summarize this in a picture, which you can meanwhile also see in the Wikipedia, this is sort of our conceptualization of what computational thinking is. It's this interaction between human abilities and computer affordances, right? It's this idea that with abstraction, you formulate a question, how does a mudslide work? And then maybe you express it as a question to prompt programming some kind of computer, or these days create a prompt for an AI, but then you hand it over, so to speak, to a computer, right? Then you get the computer affordances, which produces something, a simulation, a picture, a text, and you need to look at it. And you need to say, is this what I want? Is this the kind of simulation that answers the question of the mudslide, or is this the picture of the monkey sitting on top of the horse that I really anticipated with Midjourney? And probably it isn't, right? So you go back to abstractions and you go around and around. So it's this iterative process. And now here is a new word for you, which maybe you haven't heard. So the word of today is going to be prompting. That's not a typo. That is 2 O's. So it's writing or modifying a prompt to ChatGPT, Midjourney, or other AI systems, usually to get the desired behavior. So it's exactly this kind of process, right? This iterative process. So in other words, and here's the good news, prompting is computational thinking, right? Prompting is computational thinking. Now, let's see. So what if we also think about collaboration of humans, of course, with other humans, right? On the left-hand side, we see the statue of Rodin, which happens to be in Paris. But it's sort of a representation of how we think about thinking, right? It's a single person, maybe a man, who thinks really hard about problems and solves them simply by sitting there and coming up ultimately with an answer. That's a great model at one point, but on the right-hand side, we see a complex artifact, like a rocket that, for instance, the one that launched a couple of days ago. There's thousands of people working on these kinds of things. People are thinking with each other. There's collaborative thinking going on, and this is a very different kind of process. So how do we get there? How do we achieve these kinds of shifts. One thing would be, and that would be just the focus of my research, is about collaborative computational thinking, right? So it's this idea of using computation in groups of people to achieve something. And on the left-hand side, you see this really charming, lovely picture from Alan Kay from 1972 of two kids programming together, holding some kind of device in their hand with a network and everything. At the time, people said, Alan, you're completely crazy. You know, this kind of hardware will never exist. That's absurd. But 50 years later, guess what? We have it. It's the smartphone, right? And it's even 1,000 times more powerful than what he anticipated. And so that's the kind of technology that we want to embrace, which at the moment isn't really used in schools. On the exact opposite, right? Smartphones are being put away. You enter the classroom, the smartphone goes away. So we're not using this amazing technology, but with Ruler, we tried to come up with ways to actually be making them able to program on smartphones, on tablets, and if you're crazy enough, even on an Apple Watch. If you want to do programming on an Apple Watch, you can do it. Now, just a quick episode. This is sort of a blurry image because we're not allowed to show you kids, but here's some two kids who actually created their own game. So it's a collaborative enterprise. One is 7 and the other kid was 9. So first of all, they're playing the game collaboratively, but they also created the game collaboratively. But the interesting thing is there was a lot of math involved here, right? So the notion of counting, the notion of probabilities. At first, the teachers said, no, wait, 7 years old, they cannot possibly understand the probabilities because we didn't talk about this, right? And I said, well, let's maybe try it anyway. And it turns out, it's a completely misconception that we first need to understand mathematics and then we apply it using it and write some kind of program. For instance, then I said, so how would you typically teach probabilities? Like, well, we use dice and we roll them 50 times and then they write down the number and they find some patterns. And then I said, is this interesting to kids? You think this is actually interesting? And they said, no, probably not. It's a way to completely ruin the interest of kids in mathematics. So I thought maybe that's not the right way to do it, right? Maybe we should really flip it around. And because once they deal with these kinds of devices, and even these small kids had the probability of the things popping up too high, they noticed instantly. It's like, oh, this isn't working. We can't catch up. The probability is too high. And then they adjusted it. 7-year-olds, right? So that's the exciting part. We can use technology to flip things around. But then we also need to think, how would we teach this, right, at schools of education? We've seen this morning this not exactly super charming picture of, people having attached wires to their head and, being downloaded books, etc., into their head. So that's not the way to go. But even on the left-hand side, that picture isn't all that far-fetched. There's still schools that operate like that, right? There's no reason other than saving heating bills, having them at the same time in a room. There's no collaboration going on here. There's no reason to collaborate. But so we need to change that. So that's a very important idea. But then if we switch over to creativity, then it's also the question, how do we teach that? How do we train teachers to think about creativity? So there's the need for some scaffolding. And we created this kind of a matrix where essentially you have 2 dimensions. One is creativity is about creating things, right? Some kind of artifact. You produce something. But then there's also a process where you can say maybe the process is known and maybe it can be replicated or maybe it isn't. So in the lower left corner, sometimes we call this the IKEA corner, IKEA, the furniture. That's a lot of stuff what happens in terms of creative applications in schools. It's not super creative, obviously, right? I mean, assembling a piece of IKEA furniture creates something, that is true, but it's not creative. So the question is, well, that's maybe a great start, and a lot of teaching at schools starts in this corner. Where can we move from here? Could still be a good starting place, but then maybe one thing we could do is to say, well, maybe they create artifacts that aren't exactly the same, right? They could use a thing called modding, right? They could, I don't know why this person wanted to attach noses and ears to a car, but that's an example of modding, right? You use some kind of a artifact and you change its purpose, and that could be exciting, and that's a way to become more creative. Then there's a different thing. For instance, if you look at the idea of recoding, right? So for instance, you can show pictures of various Mondrian art, and then people look at it and say, oh, there's a certain pattern to this, but give me the tutorial to make my own Mondrian. And it's like, no, we don't have a tutorial. You know, he never created a tutorial, but if you just look at a couple of Mondrians, you'll find some kind of commonality. You will find, oh, he used these kinds of patterns of rectangles and used certain colors. He never used green color because he hated plants. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I could create my own Mondrian. So that's already more creative. It's not, I mean, there's an artifact that you had in mind, but it's a new instance of a new kind of class. And that can be very exciting, but ultimately this is where we want to go, right? We want to have what we call architecting. So it's this idea that you want to have an interesting goal, but the goal cannot be initially when kids start with these kinds of programs and they say, what do you want to make? They say, I want to make a game. What kind of game do you want to make? Well, something like Halo 3. It's like, yeah, that would be nice, but you know, you don't have the skills to do so. So we need to scaffold them to get there. And this kind of architecting, working with patterns and working gradually towards the point where you can create your own idea, that's the goal. So there's some more information for you to be had here. So if you're interested in this idea of prompting is computational thinking, we have a paper on that. You can just Google it. Or this is just an alpha prototype, but if you want to try it, there's the website there, ruler.game. This you can run on your smartphone. You don't even need to install an app. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander. And it's we're going to get back to that, but obviously, you know, the playing Pac-Man and programming it is something that is very exciting for sure. So, Mario, let's, and you can start thinking of the question that you have, you know, because then, you know, I open the floor right away. Go ahead, Mario.
Okay, this is quite a complicated title, but let me explain what it means. Essentially, I wanted in this short talk to tackle two questions that are quite different from another. The first question is that was in the topic of this panel, how we can embed creative thinking or critical thinking within technology education. So when the purpose is to teach students about technology. And the second question is how can technology, on the other hand, support creative thinking in a whole range of subjects? And the thing is that these two questions seem very different, but they're actually quite related. And in our work on this new platform that we have started a couple of years ago, we have been seeing that with the right kind of pedagogical tools, you can actually achieve the two objectives simultaneously. And let me show you how. So I'm going to talk of work that we have done in this platform for innovative learning assessment. That is, you can say it's a spin-off of PISA, because it's the same team that develops PISA. They came to the idea of venturing in the new world of formative assessment. So there is some anchoring that is made from the fact that the same people work on both. So there is some level of quite strong level of alignment in terms of the frameworks and what we think it's important to teach and learn. But the purpose is completely different, because what we are it's not really about taking a snapshot of education system or school performance, but it's really about giving a tool for teachers to use technology for supporting better their students. As I say, it's a completely free tool, so it's based on a very different paradigm of assessment that doesn't happen at the end of the year or the end of the term, but it happens continuously as students learn. The link with PISA is at the framework level. We go deeper in PILA in terms of focusing more on productive learning progressions and sequences of good instructional material. That is not something you are very much concerned of if you do a summative test. It's also like the lab where we develop like the prototypes for the future PISA and the future like assessment in the national level. But it's also what we hope to achieve is to create a platform for teachers to enable them to create and use more productively digital resources. Its Pila is made of multiple applications. These are the three that you will be able to find and play with already on the website. There is an application called Karel that is one of the many children of Alex, in which we use block-based programming to teach computational thinking. There is Betty, that is an application in which the students like learn about a topic or a given domain by consulting some multimedia resources, video and website, and what they do is that they create this like concept map, basically linking all the concepts that they have learned about, and they use this concept map to teach a virtual agent that is called Betty. And Betty only learned through the concept map, so they engage in this process of learning by teaching. And the third one, on which I will give you a little bit more example, is Candly. It's an application where students create their own game. And there are like connections that we make in terms of all the tasks and the metadata that we include to these like transversal skills that are what we would really care about teaching, but there are also connections to more like more traditional subjects and domain like mathematics and science. We are working on developing other modules. We are like looking at where there is demand. In general, the model is that we seek partners mostly in the public institutions that want to use these tools and are looking for a free open source platform. In general, the demand that we are seeing is more like going back to the basics, so mathematics and science. And this is like an extra challenge for us that I started to accept over the years in my work, that the more you insist on 21st century competencies, the more people want to bring you back to the foundations. But I think that there are lots of opportunities to do a very creative and engaging work within the traditional domains. In terms of how Pila works, it's a very simple architecture. We have like two main actors, the teachers and the students. So we try to target different types of teachers, so the ones that have a bit less time, and we'll use like the assignments, the material, the items that we already have designed and embedded in these item banks that we designed with the experts, and they mostly use it like this. They have still quite a lot of agency in selecting what tasks, what items they want to work on, but they mostly use it for monitoring student progress, for having these like continuous longitudinal measures of what students are able to do, and then adjusting the lesson plans, providing personalized assessment, and giving feedback in real time. And then there is another group of teachers that are a bit more engaged. And for those teachers, we create in each application some customization tools that basically let them create their own task and material. And of course, they can share it within the network, within their friends, of teacher friends, or internationally. The students work through their assignments, but can also use the customizer tools to create their own task and teach other peers, or showing their products to their peers. We are building like a third infrastructure that is for facilitating researcher works, using all the data pipelines for researchers to collect data and conduct, for example, randomized experiments and research. Why it is about creative thinking? Because it encourages creative solutions. So this is a little excursus on creative thinking in PISA. This is the general framework. It's essentially a test of ideation skills. So students either generate a new idea or iterate on someone else's ideas in different domains, such as the visual domains, in which they have to create a visual product, or the written domain, in which they have to create a story. And so this is how it works in Pila. This is the most creative application that we have. It's Candly. It's another Swiss product, like the ones that Alex shown. Is what the students do is that they start by creating their own ideas of the game alone or collaboratively. For example, these students have created a game that works like Angry Birds, in which you shoot some objects, and you have to make a pile of other objects fall. And they start by drawing on paper, then they take pictures, upload, and make all the sprites of all the agents interactive to make the game work, using an event-based programming. So they learn about to use technology, they learn to program, but they also develop their creative thinking skills. This is where the two things go together. I wanted to show a little video, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know if, Federico, you can click on the play button. But this is like kind of aligned to what we do in PISA, but it's much more fun than what we do in PISA. So it's an iterate item. So the students are already provided this story that is kind of a sad story of this little guy that goes under the rain, then falls down. So the purpose of this task is like we ask the students to iterate and create a variation to this story. And one of the students thought of like creating another agent. So she was in a kind of a romantic mood, and you will see what she does. Basically, there is like a romantic encounter with lots of art that pops up when the two little things, I think they are like penguins, but they could be something else. And so this is like simply how it works. They design a few sprites, they define a little bit like the interactions, and then they replay their story. And as you see, it's an original iteration. I'll let you see how it ends. And this is like by a few clicks, we have this nice ending of the story. In the Pila website, you can already see like one of the dimensions of creative thinking is not just expression or creating stories, but it's also solving problems. This is more in the problem-solving domain. The students have to program a character to like navigate in a kind of Super Mario worlds. So they have to go to this like barrel on the right, and what we see is that there are students like that actually follow the directions that we give. So at the beginning, it's the second platform in the game. And so most students like go follow all the steps. But then we have some creative students that just like choose to go straight to the target, and then they build this big like bridge in the sky, and they go directly to the goal. So we see a lot of creative solutions in these like kind of problem-solving games. And how does this like kind of environment change assessment and like put a little bit more value on the type of things you all care about? That is like thinking outside of the box, thinking creatively, thinking critically. So this is like on the left, it's a traditional PISA item. And I mean, from the inside, I can tell you that PISA hasn't changed a lot over the years. So it's still like, it's a science items. What do the students do? They read about something, they respond to a multiple choice test. To me, it's a reading item. It's not really about science, but it's science because it's a scientific context. But what we are doing in PILA, and hopefully in the next generation of PISA, is having much more interactive type of experiences in which like the students, it's not just about knowledge, but it's also about finding out and exploration. So in this like little simulation that we are creating, it's about like learning about gravity and experimenting with various objects, taking measures, working with data. And then a very important thing is that with technology, we can open the solution space. We can really think hard about problems that have multiple solutions. So this is from the computational thinking application in PILA, the CAREL, and the purpose is to bring all these stones to the center. And what we see is that there are like really a variety of student solutions. And by like having all this like information on all the processes, all the things that the students do, and also the final solutions, we can be much more granular in the evaluation of the student skills. For example, all these are good solutions. They are all correct. But you can see that there is a very different degrees of decomposition that is a crucial skills in computational thinking. On the right side, the students like program all the steps without really thinking of what they're doing. On the left side, they create functions. So they are really decomposing the problems into multiple steps. So they are a much more advanced state in their thinking. And the final point I wanted to make is that the main idea is that we can use technology to empowering teachers. So in two ways. One is by letting them choose. That is something that you have in some digital applications, not in others. There are many systems in which like the teacher really does nothing. It's all like adaptive, and the teachers log in and they just go on the system. In PILA, there are like all these big item banks, so the teachers has to decide what to assign. So there is this first level of empowerment. The second level of empowerment is on the information level. On the top, there is like the standard dashboard, that is available live as the students work. It shows like where each student is in their work, and it also like shows what like badges the students have acquired. So by basically examining the processes, we have evidence for like some productive work in different dimensions. So it's much more granular than what we do in PISA. Basically, we go at the fine level of showing and providing information on all the sub skills that the student demonstrate. And we also like do like clustering of students to support like interventions afterwards. So for example, like on the right, you have like the students are grouped in groups according to the type of mistakes they've made and the type of strategy they've done. And the idea is that the teacher shows at the end of the experience that there are multiple ways to solve a given problem, and so to show to the students without pointing at each one that there is a variety of ways they could have solved the problem. So, and the final point is that with these authoring tools, the teacher can really create their task from scratch. So this is like my conclusion is that, that there is this loop from technology learning about technology and creative thinking. We know, and we are trying to leverage this like power of technology to generate more engaging and information-rich type of learning and assessment. We see, as like also Alex showed, that there are lots of opportunities to connect programming with learning, for example, mathematics and other subjects. And we also, we are trying to prove that this doesn't need to be like just in the private space or create dependency with like the private sector, but it can also be done sustainably with open source solutions in which teachers create their own stuff and share it internationally. And the type of work is like our main partners, like it's mostly, we are not developing from scratch these applications. We are mostly partnering with like research groups like Alex One to identify like good applications and integrating them and make it available for free. So you can already play with the demos applications. So feel free to go to the website, try these 3 applications, and tell us what you think. We are like the public launch. The platform will become available to the public on December 14. And we are also, on the same date, we are releasing a publications that shows the work we have done with teachers in many countries that have tried the first version of the platform and gave us feedback. And so hopefully there will be new collaboration coming out after this presentation. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Mario. So the floor is open. So I think that we had a very interesting, 3 very interesting presentations, one showing and actually echoing the thing that we've been talking about during these 2 days, how we can integrate, the teaching of the skills with actually the, the creativity and the creative thinking. I think we had a very interesting platform, showing which is very creative in the way it is designed actually, and offering a lot of different paths. And perhaps one of the questions I had listening to the presentation is how much this creative dimension is already valued and embedded in some of the the lessons that you have shown us. And Alexander has also shown how actually not just the computational thinking, but some other aspects can be taught, thanks to computational thinking actually in a more interesting way. But we have one question, so Keisha, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I enjoyed all of the presentations, so thank you. This question came into my head as I was listening to, Isabelle from IBM. But I think it may be applicable to all of you. So I was just really interested in knowing about how you identify need, because that target sounds very exciting, that you want to connect with 3 million people by 2030. How do you identify need? And if this resource is online, how is it that you will be able to deal with access, digital poverty, to get those people who are the most in need to even get online? you know, having access to the internet and getting access to devices to then get onto the platform, what's the work that's being done around that? And just to make it transferable to the other speakers, when you're doing this work, how much does that come into your consideration, dealing and kind of engaging with young people who don't have like ready access to devices and the internet?
We'll take a few questions, so keep that one in mind. So here you go.
Bonjour. My question is about pedagogical efficiency. I would like to know which tools do you use to assess students' creative progress from their beginning level to their expert level?
David, go ahead.
So of the three of you, you're working in projects. 1 year from today, what progress are you hoping to make on the projects?
Thank you, and I will take one more from Zoom, you know, and actually it's one for you, Alex, and coming from a friend, Cesar Nunes. How you think prompting can students understand collective behavior emergence, coherence, and social movement that otherwise are so powerful in Asian sheets?
That's a big question.
Yeah, so you have to give a short answer.
Big question, short answer.
Yeah, Isabelle, you want to start?
So I'm going to have to be quick this time. Just to respond to your question, so I think there is two aspects when you mentioned the needs. So there is the needs of the market to respond to the skills gap. And so this is based on studies, and also the work is done with the content partner. The skills that we are addressing are the skills that are needed for the market and for the industries. So there is a huge work done on that, and we are addressing this. And the other things could be in your question, the needs of coming from the teachers or coming from the students, so on the other side. And I think the strength of our CSR program at IBM is that we co-create. We never just give and use. We co-create with the person. So when I gave you the example of what we did in France, it's really done, and we are co-creating. We have very regular communication, and I think it is key when industries are participating to develop curricula with a teacher that we co-create. And we also co-create with, in the end, with the students, because we wait for the feedback, and then as my colleague was mentioning, we can redesign based also on the other end, on the user's needs. So it's a full loop. And regarding your questions for the materials, it's true that it requires an access to the internet, and this is necessary to use the platform. It is available on mobile phone, because sometimes when people don't have computers, they have mobile phones, so it can be used on mobile phone. And we are also investigating on a way to use the platform without connection.
Thank you, Alex.
Should I answer the question that was to me, or?
Yeah, and the other ones, you know,
Okay.
to the extent you... Yeah.
Well, if I understood that question correctly, it was asking about how would we teach and assess processes that are emergent. For instance, you know, how would you teach something like an ecosystem? And if you use prompting or computational thinking, what you would do is you would actually try to make a model, right? You would say, how do big fish eat smaller fish, and what do small fish eat? So you create that kind of model, and the prompting process would consist of first creating a very simple kind of simulation, and then seeing what happens, right? Maybe you didn't make a stable simulation in an ecosystem. That's a very likely possibility, right? For instance, maybe the big fish eat the small fish instantly, and then your ecosystem collapses. But that's a great insight, right? Because then you see, oh, it's not that easy to actually balance an ecosystem. You could also use AI to generate that kind of simulation. We tried that in some cases with success, in other cases with less success. But for instance, if you go to ChatGPT and say, create an ecosystem simulation in JavaScript, and it may actually produce some code that you can enter into a browser, and that may work, but there's a pretty good chance that you would not be able to understand what the code exactly does unless you're really an expert in JavaScript. So I think for the moment being, there's still a good opportunity to actually teach kids programming, because if you just get served a bunch of JavaScript produced by an AI, and if you don't actually understand what it does, you can't really do much with that. So that's essentially the idea behind these kinds of processes, that you would still try to teach computational thinking and programming to kids so that they can actually understand the world by writing a program.
Thank you. Mario?
Yeah, on the access question is it's a very important one. Also our platform now works with internet, so there is this concern. We are also studying an offline solution, but it doesn't really it cannot really guarantee all this type of of live monitoring, and it doesn't provide the same type of value. And there is, at the same time, it's not an exclusive solution in the sense that now, we have a partnership with Brazil, and we are going to relatively rural areas. You only need a laptop that can be shared, a tablet that can be shared across over multiple children, and a low band connection. So something that you can generate with a phone, and we are hoping to start next year, a work in Thailand, trying to that will target disadvantaged communities, and there are lots of now providers of often in the open source world, in the non-profit world, that have created little tools with which you can create local connections that cost about 30 euros. So if you think of all the many billionaires that are around the world, and foundations and things like that, I think the scalability is big, especially if you don't go for doing the metaverse type of things, but relatively easy interactive experiences that are productive from the point of view of learning. So it's not an insurmountable challenge from both an economic and a practical point of view. In terms of the need adaptation, we are also working with teachers, and in general, when we start, we new collaborations in Brazil or in Thailand, we have this conversation, what is that you need? And this determines whether the next application will be a mathematics applications, and it will be for elementary schools, or if it will be for secondary schools. And there is this process of co-designing, and then finding a tech partner that can develop it. But the demand starts always from the local organizations and teachers. In terms of the progress in 1 year, we hope that there will be new uses of the platform that we have not imagined, more partnership. We hope to prove that the open source model can work. That there will be more teachers. That will be teachers that create the material and share it, because that's still a question mark to what extent the teachers will engage to the point of creating their own task. So if these visions of the teacher as creator is something that plays out in the reality of teacher having little time. On the pedagogical process, I think these kind of tools are really good for evaluation, because you have basically every teacher has access to this information for each of the students, and in this portfolio, they see all the assignment that the students have completed, and they see the kind of product that the student has created. So there is this final product, the digital artifact that Alex was speaking about, that is there, and it's a demonstration of of the capacity, the engagement of the students to create something new and original. Plus, you have all this information on the process data. You see, you can basically replay all the process of work, and you have all the data on how many attempts they made, what they do when they get stuck, and all this kind of information that is important to evaluate not just the product, but the process of developing creative work.
Okay, we have 2 more questions and then a final round before we close. So, over there.
Oh, thank you very much. I'd like to point a link between this session and the one before, because it looks like now we have opportunities to have 2 different moments, one based on low tech, well, with a topic like biodiversity or climate change, where low tech tools are very important, and paper and so on, and then the possibility to shift on technology, more technology demanding, rewards somehow, programming a game or making a movie out of the material that children have produced. And that's super interesting. But the articulation of the two, of course, demands a specific work. And I'm not sure at the moment that this kind of setup can simply be founded or organized, because it's just in between. You see, it's just in between the sessions. So do you have think about this, or start to think about this kind of combination?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. So my question is quite simple, which is that, as some of you mentioned, so I agree that the creative education and the AI digital learning is like influence each other, and both very important. So I'm just wondering how early we should carry out this like digital learning, computational learning for the kids. So should they get the education as early as possible, like in the preschool, or just they should do it after they get into the primary school, and whether they should do the computational learning or digital learning along with their math learning, or it just doesn't matter if they are not good at math, but they can start their computational learning. So,
thank you. So we'll start with Mario and go the other way around, but very short intervention. Because
Yeah, I'll take Renaud, and I will let Alex respond to you. Yes, on the interaction, I think you should break the separation in some way. We are trying to do that. For example, like in the app that I showed you, it starts from like students like working on paper, creating the story for the game, the general idea of the game, and they write it down, and then they start like drawing all this like character. And then technology comes in because they want to create the animations. But there are lots of manifestation of creative work that are not in the technology space and are completely not wired. And then at the end, the idea of having this digital portfolio. In this digital portfolio, you can really collect all the evidence that you want and that you think is valuable. So all these pictures of the drawings, or the type of things that we have shown in the previous panel, this can all be recorded and be part of your collection of information on the student. So I think there should be this synergy, and there should not be the fixed separation. And also on the evaluation, okay, these interactive things that I showed produce a lot of process data, but there is nothing that prevents from human evaluations and for integrating this kind of more rubric type of evaluations in the system. So I think they are perfectly compatible. We need to make the two words speak a little bit more.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, I'm taking your question about how early. I think there's not a whole lot of evidence indicating that if kids haven't been exposed to programming in kindergarten, that they will fail later, right? So in that sense, I think we should focus not so much on the cognitive, but maybe even more so on the affective dimension, in the sense that, you know, if we make them program B-bots in kindergarten and then they follow black lines, robots, and who knows what, and if you do it year in, year around, they come to the point where they say, oh, this is boring, and I knew it's boring. You could do more damage, right? So you actually want to be a little careful. Right, so if you have age-appropriate materials that are actually exciting, you can do it. But from a cognitive point of view, there's no real reason to say if we didn't start at kindergarten, it's not going to work at middle school or high school.
Thank you. Isabelle?
Yes, just one comment maybe regarding your question about sustainability and how to make the bridge. It's also a subject of importance of technology, and we have announced, IBM has announced, I think it was last week, that the launch of a new sustainability module related to technology, so we are making the bridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and if I add myself a comment on the comments, actually, and it's Mitch Resnick, who also is a Scratch or block computer person, who actually doesn't like to talk about teaching or computing, and talks more about expressing oneself in the language of coding. And so that's a way to add to your question, that in terms of how we need to think about it. So join me to thank our great panel, and then we'll move on to the next session. Thank you very much.